and he looked on Deuteronomy and he saw what Moses was talking about. And if you go, and I'm going to get into a bunch of this stuff in a great detail, but if you go look at Deuteronomy 30, right before he says, I set before you this day good and evil, life and blood. Right before he gets into that, you know what Moses says? This word that I've given you, it's not far from you that you should have to climb up into heaven to get it. But it's near you, even in your heart and in your mouth.
Right.
Now, does that sound like something you do or something you believe?
Something you believe.
So what did Paul say? With the heart, Paul quoted Moses and then he built on it.
Yeah.
What did he say? He said, with the heart will believe and then with the mouth will confess. So Moses says, listen, this whole word that I gave you, you're busy thinking it's about performing all these works. Listen, brother, it's not far from you that you should have to climb up into heaven or go across the sea to bring it. But it's near you, even in your heart and in your mouth. Moses is saying, this word that I just gave you, listen, man, it's not a bunch of works to perform. It's something that will cause you to believe on God. And then when that causes you to believe on God, out of your mouth will come, not by strength of my hand, O God, but by strength of your hand.
Yes.
Even with the heart will I believe, it will be unto my mouth confessing God, just like Jesus. And so Moses says, with the heart you will believe, and out of the mouth you will confess. Isn't that what Jesus did on the cross? Mm-hmm. He believed with the heart that he would not be saved from the death of the cross by his own works, but he'd be saved by Abba. Right. And then that caused him to confess out of his mouth, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. He manifested Deuteronomy 30 on the cross. Wow. He manifested the thing Moses was talking about because he heard the faith of God as a boy. When he heard Deuteronomy, he heard the Spirit. See, Jesus was born of the Spirit, not a human father. Right. So when they read Deuteronomy, the Spirit was busy inside of him. Look at this. Look at that. Watch it. See, Jesus was hearing Spirit and life. Yeah. Because he didn't have the carnal mind. Right. And so he actually heard what Deuteronomy said.
That's right.
And he saw the Father telling him, listen, man, the flesh will bring a curse upon you. The works of your own hands can't clothe you with glory and immortality. It can't make you the heir of the world. It can't conquer the death that's entered the world. But I can. Yeah. Look at what I did there. Right? Yeah. And so Jesus saw that he would receive the blessing. What was the blessing? The promise of the Spirit. Yeah. And so the whole book of Deuteronomy is trying to tell Jesus about how he's going to receive the promise of the Spirit. And the way he was going to receive the promise of the Spirit was by believing on God, and it would be by God's strength and not his own that he would conquer the cross and conquer the grave. And he received the blessing, and he received the life. Yeah. The promise of the Spirit he received as a man. Right. That was the only way that the Spirit could be poured out on all flesh, is if a human came and in the place of having all death rested in God. Then that human actually believed on the Spirit.
Yes.
And that human was in the likeness of Adam, meaning dominion, headship over the human race. Yeah. So that allowed the Holy Spirit to now be made available to all flesh, to everyone who would see the word that Jesus saw in Deuteronomy in Jesus. Jesus is our Deuteronomy. Mm. He is the preaching of faith. When we behold him, we are hearing of faith. And then what that does is it brings something forth in our heart where we see, my goodness, that guy didn't conquer his own death. That guy didn't clothe himself. That guy was clothed by God. Yes. And raised from the dead by God. Yes. And all that guy did was believe in God. Yes. Now we're not left to work up belief. But we see the wondrous work that God did for us in Jesus. That causes something to happen in our hearts where we confess out of our mouth, not by strength of my hand, O God, but by you and your grace. Mm.